It is a beautiful day in the neighborhood because we get to hang out with you lovely individuals. Welcome to League Unlock. Eric and Mark with you guys. And today we are looking back at the regular season that was in the LCS, 9 weeks behind us, which is more than enough information to go through who we think deserves to be on the all-pro teams, first, second, and third in North America.
Hey, it's North America, and certainly when you look at our standings, you might say some of these teams probably don't deserve to be playoff-worthy teams. But when you look here at these players and these lists here on the all-pro teams, I think everyone can agree that the stats, the performances that these players have put up this year do deserve them a spot here on these all-pro teams.
And if you remember in spring, Santorin was the only player not on TSM, Team Liquid, or Cloud9 that made it onto these all-pro teams. But it's a very different story here in the summer split, not nearly the sheer dominance displayed by the top three teams. They are heavily represented, but not nearly as much as spring. So let's start with that first team, the best of the best in their positions. And yes, it's still heavily influenced by those top two squads. We are talking Team Liquid and Cloud9. In fact, those are the only teams that we're talking about here.
They're the only two that you can be talking about right now when you're talking about first team All-Pro. I'll accept a couple of other omissions here into the second team All-Pro, but when you're looking at first team All-Pro, these are instantly the guys that jump out at you for the performances that they've been able to give here so far this split. They've been major contributors to the success and individual performances and victories in those games. I really, especially here when I'm looking at this group, I love CoreJJ's impact since coming over here to North America. This was something that we instantly thought would be a smash bot lane, but as we've learned with new bot lanes being put together, it isn't always as easy as just dreaming about this duo and putting them together and seeing the instant results. CoreJJ has been fantastic for Team Liquid and great with Doublelift.
Yeah, I think Doublelift and CoreJJ, obviously, this is the most one that you have absolutely no argument about. They were clearly the best bottom lane throughout the entirety of the summer split, as they were in the spring split as well. This duo, ever since they got together, it's been absolute dominance. I don't think you're talking about, I don't know if either of these guys get into necessarily that dominant MVP conversation. They've been back-to-back MVPs from last summer to spring. I don't know if either of them are going to repeat as that, but they've still dominated the laning phase and the mid game in that bot lane.
If you're going with my vote, I wouldn't be voting on the repeat type of situation here. I just don't think that this split necessarily has been an impressive performance.
It's been more well-rounded for Team Liquid.
Absolutely. That's where I would go as far as the whole squad, but individual performance-wise, I don't think it's necessarily the MVP squad here from Team Liquid. But when we're staying with Team Liquid here, talking about that bottom side, you got to go all the way up to the top side of the map as well and look at that strength. Their impact has been a player with his time towards the end of Cloud9 and the beginning of Team Liquid that was looked at as kind of more or less the weaker link on the lineup, as the area that, teams might have an advantage in that position and take advantage, get some jungle pressure up there and find a way to do it. But right now, the way that Impact has been able to play, what I've really liked about Impact, man, that big brain has turned on mega style here because he has been phenomenal in the top side. He has done exactly what Team Liquid has asked from him, providing that type of pressure, providing that type of outlet there on the top side. And hey, he can even play that volley bear. So this dude definitely getting that first team all-star.
Yeah, and he's usually looked at as a weak link on Team Liquid, a rare weakness that they have, but that has not been the case whatsoever in summer, even when he's not getting much attention from Xsmithy, which does happen pretty frequently on this roster when you have Jensen and Doublelift. He's still more than held his own. He's even been winning lane on his own in the 1v1 against even some of the other top-tier top laners in the LCS here, and meta seems to be fitting him perfectly. Impact is not an issue whatsoever for Team Liquid.
Hey, he will not be the issue for Team Liquid. Who could be an issue for Team Liquid? Oh, it could be the Cloud9 boys. Reckon that good performance that
best mid-jungle duo
that you've seen from TL in the summer. But yeah, it is that mid-jungle duo here for Cloud9 leading the way. And this has been a really refreshing thing here to see right away is that, yes, Jensen goes over to Team Liquid, and yes, that's been a great move as well. But the better move has been to add Niski to Cloud9, and I call it the better move because you're making that move having to replace someone. You're having to find something to at least match up to that value or provide something different here. And I feel like with Niski, you're at least getting that matched up value that you would be getting from a player like Jensen, or you had received from Jensen in the past. And then when you talk about the synergy here with this lineup, I just think that Niski overall is a better fit to the way that Svenskeren wants to go through this jungle. We'd seen, the mixing between Blabber and Svenskeren with Jensen before. I think right now the duo of Svenskeren and Niski is probably the most lethal combo here right now in NA.
And here's one of the main reasons we have Niski on that first team over someone like Jensen. It's because he's really featured and more important to this Cloud9 roster than Jensen on Liquid. I think there's more responsibility that Niski takes on in the laning phase and in a lot of these team fights where he's kind of forced to carry, forced to take over and be that main focal point for carrying these team fights, and he has done a fantastic job. Probably the best split that we've seen professionally for Niski, and I think he deserves that first team All-Pro nod. If we're talking about Svenskeren, I'd say again, it's the best split we've seen in North America, and this man should be the front runner, will be the front runner for the MVP award.
This is absolutely everybody that had been watching Svenskeren's career and had seen him on TSM and the struggles that they had in that final split of him with that organization and realizing that they were going to move on from him. Everyone had realized that, yes, you had to move on, there are other issues there, but man, this is still an incredible talent that still has so much to offer here. And bam, goes right to C9. And you didn't see it quite exactly right away. It didn't translate here, but you're really seeing it now. The time spent with the organization, spent with the coaching staff here, spent adjusting here to being a Cloud9 member and with these new teammates, it has worked out fantastic. You're seeing that skill that Sven has always had here in the jungle. He is one of the best aggressive junglers here in the LCS and deserving of that first team nod.
And remember, when they let contracts go to the Golden Guardians, got Svenskeren in after the ending with TSM, it was eye rolls from Cloud9 fans. They were not excited about it, thought it was going to be a big downgrade. Looking at how the two career trajectories have gone since then, I think you feel okay if you're a Cloud9 fan.
Hey, sure, it's cost Jack a couple of more keyboards here, spilling some water all over the place.
You got to take the sacrifice,
Take that sacrifice, get better on the Rift here, and that's exactly what Cloud9 has done this year, and Svenskeren and Niski leading the way for them.
Yeah, which is surprising. It's a new era of Cloud9 and new people leading them to the playoffs and a playoff bye. Coming up after the break, we got plenty more All-Pro teams to go through, and man, has it been a long time since we talked about CLG making any of these lists. Ladies and gentlemen, we have returned to League Unlock. Eric and Mark hanging out with you guys, handing out some All-Pro honors in the LCS for the summer split. We're on to the second team, and it's always tough to differentiate that first tier from that second tier, and there's always arguments to be made. It was all Team Liquid and all Cloud9 on the first team, but the second squad, we've got some other representation from some of the other squads. It's a lot more diverse when we're talking about it here, but in the top lane, it's still going to be a Cloud9 member. It is Licorice. I know he sat out some games with the wrist issues. And listen, I think if Kumo played more games, you might be having him on this list.
That's kind of scary here, thinking about that type of talent that you've got in the pipeline here for Cloud9. Because yes, Licorice has been phenomenal. Licorice continues to develop as a player. We still see him as someone who is maybe not the best in the laning phase up in the top side, but man, when it comes down to anything about objective control, team fights, this man is an absolute man on a mission in these team fights to get to that backline, disrupt your damage dealers, and start ending the game here. He has been phenomenal at that for Cloud9. His presence in these mid-game team fights has been a major difference maker for the organization.
And for Xmithy, he continues to be doing what he does best, which is always be a top 3 at worst jungler in North America. I don't think he's really ever fallen out of that category or fallen behind that. This year, this split, the damage numbers aren't there because he's playing a lot of Skarner, a lot of Sejuani, throw in the old Nunu there every now and again, but he is the control for the mid-game for Team Liquid.
You've got Doublelift, you've got Jensen, and hey, even Impact up there in the top side going wild for some top die type of moments. You don't need Smithy on a damage dealing champion here. You need Smithy to be using that 200 IQ brain
that
there
pillar.
to get some of those plays off. You need him to be stealing Barons like he's always known for.
He's done that.
That is exactly what Smithy needs to be doing here, and that's what he's been doing for this Team Liquid squad. He has been a phenomenal point for them, very stable for them throughout their entire history with Smithy on this lineup. He has really been that pillar that they can rely upon in almost any situation.
And continues to have probably the most intelligent jungle pathing, at least of anyone in North America, and he's held that title for many splits in a row. It's his mid laner Jensen who comes in on that second team, again, behind his replacement in Niski, and I think Jensen hasn't necessarily had to answer the call of being the premier carry on Team Liquid, and we just talked about them overall being more well-rounded. Niski has to do more on Cloud9 than Jensen. That's why he's on the second team.
Right, and this is where you kind of look at Jensen. You might feel a little bad because you look at the stats of what he's done and you say, well, you couldn't really be asking.
He doesn't get that many resources. Look at that gold number.
That is still the same here from the Cloud9 days, not pulling in too many resources here. Of course, we know it's Team Liquid. Resources got to go to the bottom side, but he has been able to get the job done. And the big thing here I want to say is, of course, yes, you haven't seen maybe some of these intense carry performances that you might have seen on the C9 days with Jensen here, but I think what you've seen him provide a lot more for the team here and a lot more consistently, I think, is the pressure that he's been able to provide in the mid lane in his own individual matchups. I think that has been a much better performance overall here and has been a real difference maker again for this Team Liquid team, having that outlet of pressure they're able to try and plan around here as the game goes on.
And I don't think he's really had a bad game all split long. Maybe he's not popping off and 1v9ing any of these games, but he has never been close to a liability for Team Liquid.
Yeah, he is certainly not the issue or the reason why you're ending up with so many deficits in any type of matchup here.
Nope.
He is usually holding his own very well. I've been very impressed with his performance and very quick transition into the Team Liquid lineup.
The bottom lane on the second team All-Pro squad is where things get interesting because it's not Cloud9, it's not Team Liquid. His return to the LCS as a starter, it's Cody Sun on clutch, and I think he is not getting enough credit for what he did this split, especially in a summer season where I think some of the old AD carry stars underwhelming performances. We're talking about Sven, Sneaky, even Stixay to some degree, not quite at the same level. Cody Sun was the consistent carry for Clutch throughout the entire split. 8 times this guy didn't have a single death. That's almost half the games in the season.
Now, I know it was supposed to be meant more of as kind of, pre-game flame type of situation here, but I had a video a while ago of Doublelift talking about Cody Sun and what he thought about him, and, he said, yeah, this guy was, kind of popping off in the scene when he kind of first showed up, and then I haven't really seen anything or any progression since then. Well, I don't know if Doublelift was watching this split here very intensely with Clutch Gaming, because I tell you what, I saw a lot of progression here from Cody Sun in this split specifically, and this is a great sign here for Clutch Gaming and a great sign for Cody Sun because I didn't see this type of progression, I didn't see this type of performance and discipline from him when he was down in the academy even. So this type of performance, this type of boost back up to the LCS stage seems to have reinvigorated something with Cody Sun because he is really performing at a much better level here. And again, this is a player that we did see towards the top half of the statistics when he was here last in the LCS, back here again, and we are seeing what seems to be, to me at least, an improved performance, getting him onto the second All-Pro team list.
I mean, on 100 Thieves, you were talking about him behind Doublelift as the second best AD carry in North America. Now on an entirely new roster, he's going back to playoffs, and he's right up there in that top category yet again. And this guy just makes playoffs. He's made it every single split except for his first one on Immortals. Makes you wonder why Piglet was ever starting over.
He's provided us certainly a major increase in value and performance over what Piglet was given this Clutch Gaming roster at the beginning of the season.
And in support, CLG, they're back in playoffs. They're back being represented on the All-Pro teams. It is Biofrost in that second team. He has stepped up into that leadership role on CLG, and it has proved dividends for them. I mean, he's been the shot caller, main source of communication for them. His Tom Kench is still sometimes questionable, but on any of these engaged champions, you remember his recon on TSM. He still has it there. He's been great on the Lux. I have loved watching this guy play on CLG.
This has been a fantastic pickup for CLG. This was one that when the big TSM exodus happened before, you looked at the roster getting blown up and you thought to yourself, Biofrost is really one of these players here that I think you might have wanted to keep, even if you thought about his issues, given how young he was and what he could develop into here. And we didn't see it right away with CLG too. We did see some growing pains with the new roster.
Yeah, he was stepping into that leadership.
New situation, and again, that leadership type of situation. And what we see now with Biofrost is, again, yes, those mechanical plays that we know him for, those engages on the recon. We know him as that Thresh one-trick back in solo queue. But of course, the big difference now is the shot calling, the decisiveness in his voice. He is very loud in those comms there for CLG, really making sure things are explained here to the team, what's going on. And that was probably the biggest criticism from him from his time on TSM. So to see that change into complete 180 here is, man, that's a feels good, man, situation here. Not only that, but it's really good for COG's performance because it has really helped them skyrocket up the standings.
It is a new era for Counterlogic Gaming here in 2019 summer. Coming up after the break, we got one more all-pro team to go through, and it is a very diverse cast of characters, a whole lot of teams represented on that third squad. Hello, friends, and everybody else that happens to be tuning in to League on Lock, Eric and Mark, as we continue the All-Pro squads in North America on to that third team. And Mark, I gotta tell you something. This is the first time, and I can confidently say this, since they've been handing out All-Pro awards, this is the first split where we have 0 members of TSM on the list. Not even Bjergsen, 0 members.
That's a tough task to achieve there, is really saying something about this Team Solo mid right now and the state of the organization, performance of this roster right now. To think that this roster was, one match away from winning the spring title, and then of course
what happened?
We have seen flashes, very small flashes, of them being able to reach somewhere towards that potential, but not close enough yet. And when you look again at this third team All-Pro, you can't really make too much of an argument against any of these players being here to put a TSM member here, because let's go through them. When you're in the top side, Huni, yes, Huni has at times not exactly been the carry that you want him to be. But if you've looked at
sometimes he's trying to carry too hard. That's his problem.
Sure. But if you also have looked at anything within the last 5 weeks of Clutch Gaming, you could definitely say that the performance from Huni has geared much more towards the Huni of old, and he really has been providing this extra level of damage here for this team. He's really been utilized by Clutch Gaming in a way of, trying to maximize their damage potential here, in the sense of, hey, let's run everyone else AD. Huni, you're going to be our AP. We need it to really be there in those team fights. Huni steps in, gets that magic damage down, and that's exactly why he's doing his role, and that's why he finds himself on the third team All-Pro.
And that third team top laner was maybe the hardest one in this entire list to do, because Haunter and Ruin, I think, are right there in that conversation alongside Huni. Ruin, I think he dies too much. He kind of is like what Huni did in spring, where he's just getting caught out a lot, some unnecessary deaths there, and Huni has cleaned that up much better. There's still the odd time. And for Haunter, listen, I think he gets more assistance from his jungler and the rest of his team. He should be on this category. He had some of the best laning stats, but Huni definitely stepped up in that carry role for Clutch. He's the only top laner that's near 30% of his team's damage. And we've seen this guy be the best top laner in leagues before. He's not quite there yet, but he is getting back to his old form. Wiggly comes in for that third team jungler spot. And I mean, someone like Meteos is probably right behind him on a fourth team, but Wiggly, man, he stepped up in a huge way for CLG this split.
And we had been talking about Wiggly for kind of the last year now.
Waiting for when he'd start.
Waiting to see this type of moment. And then when it happens, it was a little bit underwhelming, because you didn't exactly get the type of performance or play that you knew that Wiggly was capable of. And what it seemed to be here when we found out is that he was trying to do kind of that situation again of trying to do a little bit too much, trying to be a little bit too flashy, too impressive here, as opposed to what the team exactly needs at that point in time. He's gone back to the drawing board with the rest of the CLG squad. They reapproached the game. They reapproached his style to the jungle, and man, has it matched up and synergized quite well here. Those numbers looking real good for this Wiggly boy.
And it's just exciting to see actual NA talent be groomed, domestic talent, and actually perform well and make it onto one of these lists. Crown is in that mid lane, and listen, for the first 4 weeks, we were talking about this guy as the front runner for MVP. He hard carried Optic to victories more than any individual player, I think. On any other team, he's clearly the best player on his squad, and even in some of their losses, this poor man was trying his damnedest to carry and drag his team over the finish line.
This has been a phenomenal story, and I think one of the best stories all year, let alone in the LCS, in all of esports here, is Crown coming over. We know that Crown has had issues with depression in the past and not exactly having the performances that he wanted to close out his time with Gen G, but to get him over here to North America with Zabutin and the Optic crew, and the idea here behind saying, hey, we don't care about the performance, what you're going to give us on the Rift here. We want you to be happy playing League of Legends again professionally. And hey, they've accomplished that. And not only have they accomplished that, of course, we have seen the performance reach back to those type of, Worlds 2017, 2016 type of levels that we're seeing from Crown again. And man, is it exciting, because I tell you what, this is one of the best players in the world, one of the most exciting players in the world when he's at that level. And we're seeing him here in North America. He's getting it done for Optic, carrying them to playoffs.
And he can still play Victor. Doesn't matter the meta. He can play that and still ruin and crush TSM's hopes and dreams, even when he's on a totally different team against a totally different roster.
That's his passive ability.
Yeah, destroy TSM's hopes and dreams. It seems like a lot of teams have that passive right now. The bottom laners, listen, Bang is not going to playoffs. 100 Thieves are not going to playoffs, and I don't think at all he lived up to the hype that he had coming into this, and some of that is not going to be his fault, but the reason he's on this all-pro team, quite frankly, is because of the underwhelming performances of the staple guys that are usually on this list. I don't think Sven would agree that he had a performance this split good enough to be in the top 3, and Sneaky, while he had a great last 2 weeks, it's like people already forgot that that was the biggest issue for Cloud9 for the first 7 weeks, really. He was even getting subbed out for Deathly.
Yeah, it certainly is a situation when you're looking at this one and kind of think to yourself, man, we have so many riches in so many of these other positions, and then you get to the AD carry performance and you're kind of like, we didn't really get anything all that great this year. And yes, you do have to put Bang here in the performance, and yes, he was underwhelming in his time here so far in North America, and I think part of that is how big the name is and how flashy it was, the idea of getting this world championship player with SKT. We've been talking about getting one of them for quite a while here in North America. Wasn't exactly the one that everyone's been really dreaming of, but we certainly got a really big name one, and the name didn't exactly match the performance right away, and of course the expectations that roster had didn't help with it. But now when you're in summer and you looked at some of the performances that he was able to give up and what he was going up against, you got to put him in here, did enough to qualify for this team.
And there's no question that he was the main carry on that squad at all times. Amazing was the MVP for them, but the featured carry was obviously Bang, and he still performed as one of the best performing AD carries in that bottom lane. Zeyzal comes in at support. We talked about Sneaky stepping up the last few weeks. Zeyzal did as well, and I think he was less of an issue throughout the whole split. His synergy with Svenskeren, they've been one of the best jungle support duos in the league.
They've been fantastic, and I think that this is one of the situations here where you could have maybe put Smoothie there if you wanted a TSM member, but just didn't quite cut it
happening.
Here. It's got to be the performance of Zeyzal the last couple of weeks.
2019 summer, and no TSM members on any of the all-pro teams. That's it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark with you guys. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.